Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel Karoma. I'm the Business Liaison Officer here in Montgomery County. I've always been joined by my colleague, Ruth, who is the Economic Development Manager from our Department of Finance. We are going to go right ahead into our webinar. I know there's a few more people who are coming into the webinar. Again, if this is your first time joining us, we are talking about the Montgomery County Public Health Emergency Grant, which is a $20 million program that the county government has stood up to help our for-profit and non-profit businesses. Other business entity types that are eligible to apply are sole proprietors, independent contractors. If you are a corporation, that could be an S Corp, B Corp, C Corp here in Maryland. If you're an LLC and LLP, you are eligible. Faith-based organizations are also eligible to apply for the $20 million grant program. The $20 million grant program set aside as a provision in the legislation that set aside 25% of the funds to prioritize restaurant and retail storefronts. And to be eligible for the program, the legislation states that you have to demonstrate a significant loss in revenues. And the month at which we're looking at right now is just the month of March, because that's the month that the governor issued the executive order, which impacted many of our nonprofits and for-profit businesses here in the county. Also, your principal place of business has to be in Montgomery County. If not, then 50% or more of your employees have to work in the county in order for your entity to be eligible. The program was set up for businesses and nonprofits that have 100 or fewer employees. And so those are the baseline eligibility criteria that are needed. From there, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ruth, who will go into some updates. And from there, we will just open it up for Q&A. So meanwhile, if you have questions based on the application you've submitted, or if you're getting ready to submit your application, please post your questions in the chat box, and then Ruth and I would read it once we finish the updates. And towards the end part of the webinar, if we still have a little bit more time, we will open it up for those who have not asked questions. You can ask a verbal question, and then we'll be able to answer those questions. With that being said, Ruth, why don't you go ahead and give us some updates?
Yes, thank you, Daniel. Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Ruth Semple with the Montgomery County Department of Finance. Thank you for joining our webinar this morning. We'll try to give you a status of where we are and answer some questions. As of this morning, it looks to me like we have about 5,500 applications that we've received. We have almost 200 of them under review. I am one of the reviewers, and I'll share with you some of the experiences that me and my fellow reviewers have had, so we can so you get a little insight there. We have some approvals going out already. I would expect that there may be some could be some people getting money by the end of the week, but I certainly think next week some funds will be flowing. So it's moving through. I will also say that we are looking to increase our capacity to process faster. So there's a lot of work going on in that on that front right now as we speak. We've been discussing that for a couple of days based on our initial experience. I would say one of the things, if you've not submitted an application yet, one of the things we're finding is that when people submit their 2020 financial information, they are sometimes submitting January and February. Sometimes they submit an entire quarter within one P&L from January through the end of March. Really what we're focusing on is the month of March. So if you can send us just your March P&L, that would be very helpful to us. If you don't have a March P&L, we can go by your March bank statement. All the reviewers are, if we're looking at an application and you've sent us a quarterly statement for the entire quarter, we're following up with you and we're saying, please send us just for March and any other issues we may come across. So you may very well hear from a reviewer seeking some additional clarifying information. So we'll reach out to you. We have your email address from your applications, and we'll reach out to you and request some additional information or clarifications. So I would also say that when you're filling out the application, if you could very clearly let us know that if you've gotten your rent deferred, you've signed a deferment agreement with your landlord or come to terms with your landlord, make sure you let us know what month that is. Was it for the month of March, or is it for the month of April, or even further than that? I would also tell you that we're talking right now about the month of March because the bill as it stands now requires us to look at documented historical losses. So that's, March or earlier. We hear and we know and we feel the pain. There's a lot of losses that are occurring right now in the month of April, May, June. There are future losses that people are experiencing. We cannot address those now, but we are talking about it and looking at that. And today there is a county council hearing about this program. The council is looking at putting some additional funding in. So I would encourage you to check that out and watch those details. There's still a lot of money left to roll out. We've been asked, how much is left of the 20 million? So right now, it looks to me like we've got about 50 or so grants that are, we've granted approval, and we're waiting for the applicants to sign their grant agreements and get those back to us. So there's still plenty of money in the pot to be distributed today. So if you haven't sent in an application, please do. If you, let's see, and I think that's about it for just highlights from me. Did I miss anything, Daniel? Should we?
No, I think you've given
cover the current. Okay.
Yeah,
we should probably talk about. We've also been asked, is there going to be an appeal process? We haven't yet discussed or set that. Well, we've discussed. I think we're trying to decide how to deal with that. How can we, and how we will deal with that. So that's a question that we're getting pretty regularly right now. So that's where we are. Okay.
All right. So before we move into Q&A, just wanted to see, is anyone here from LEDC? If you are, we're just going to give you a few minutes to just unmute yourself. And okay, I don't think I see Javiera. Okay. All right. Okay. So quickly, for those who are joining us for the first time, I just want you to, I'm highlighting the web address. This is a public website that we're actually going through right now, and this is actually the website where you can apply. So we have all the information here, and I'm just going to scroll down really quick as Ruth is looking at some of the questions that are coming in. We talk about eligibility. Ruth discussed in terms of the financials that you need to provide, and then also you have to be in good standing. So we've provided links to the Maryland Department of Assessment and Taxation for you to go in and search and see if your entity is in good standing. Also, please note that sole proprietors and faith-based organizations are exempted, for registering with the state. So therefore, if you go to check your standing with the state, you may not, see your entity there. So just be aware of that. If you're a sole proprietor or faith-based organization applying, then you don't need to worry about that. And then the thirdly is the web application itself, which says apply. Again, we provided samples of the applications, and I'm going to go right here to the right-hand side. So we have FAQs that are right here, and we also have organizations, our business resource partners, our chamber partners. We have a list of them that have agreed to help nonprofits and businesses that need help filling out the application. And you can also see the language capacity that they have as well. So please, again, if you have any problems filling out the application, reach out to one of these organizations right here, and they will help you fill out the application. All right, with that being said, Ruth, do we have any questions?
Look, sorry, I was looking at numbers again. They change just constantly.
That's okay.
No questions in the chat. Wow, okay.
I don't think we're that good. So let's
I don't think so either. Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah. So again, if there are no questions in the chat, then what we will do is if anyone has a question, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, Daniel. This is Janice Freeman. How are you?
Hi, Janice. Good morning.
Hi, Janice. Good morning.
I've been to every meeting, but I've been sitting back. I had a few. Repeat what you said again about the sole proprietorship. If you're a sole proprietor, is it that you don't have to have good standing? What did you just say?
No. So many sole proprietors, some of them, when they register, if they register with the state, that means they're doing like a DBA. So it could be Daniel Koroma doing business as ABC company or ABC. But many are not required to register in terms of like the business registration that corporations and LLCs, LLPs, those type of business registrations. And also, many also don't file business personal property taxes. So as a result of that, they're not in they're not in the state database where they have to search for good standing. So we've had some questions where sole proprietors will come back and say, "Oh, I went to the site, but I wasn't able to look there to see the name of my company." And when we realized the business entity type, then we then said, no, you would not be there because, again, if you haven't registered with the state, then you would not be within their system.
Right. So in essence, sole proprietors are not required to be in good standing either by the state of Maryland or for purposes of this program. It just doesn't apply to sole proprietorships.
Okay. Since we don't have any questions, I have one other I will ask.
Oh, Janice,
Sure.
go away. I mean, you're the only question we have right now, so thank you for asking this question.
So I have a few businesses that have applied, but one, and I think they may have applied, this owner has been in business like 7 years, but functioning under one name, had a DBA functioning in another name. But as of last year, that DBA became a primary. So I hope I'm not confusing. The first company is still a standalone LLC. The DBA has now become a standalone LLC. That's as of last July. So they've applied. Will they be able to, in order for you to work with them, can you work with both LLCs? It's under one owner. Or will you have to only work with the one that's now the primary name LLC?
Yeah. Do you want me to take that, Daniel?
Yeah, go ahead, Ruth.
Okay. So, hey, Janice, it's Ruth.
Hi.
So really the issue is going to be each LLC is a distinct legal entity, right?
Yes.
So really each LLC would be eligible to apply for a grant. Now, it seems to me that the current LLC would have the best chance of being eligible because there's current revenue. It's a current operating business, right?
Yes.
So they'll be able to show a loss. I'm going to use the term, the older LLC might not have the wherewithal to show the loss since they haven't been operating. That might be a bigger challenge, but without knowing the details, we'd have to look at them. But really the answer is each LLC as a separate, distinct tax-paying entity and legal entity could apply for the grant.
Okay, if you receive something like that, you probably would go back to them and ask for some explanation, hopefully.
Well, I would, yeah. I mean, the application itself, the first question is, the applicant. The applicant's not going to be the individual. The applicant's going to be the business. So they'll have to pick
Exactly.
and choose.
Exactly.
You can only put one name in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they did. They put the new LLC, but
Yeah.
I think they may have added some explanation, but I thought it's
okay.
a little complex.
I would suspect a reviewer would get back to them and straighten that out and ask a few questions and try to figure it out. We are all trying to get people eligible. So we go back, we ask questions, we clarify, we straighten out documentation issues, because we're working really hard to get people eligible and approved. That's what we're all trying to do.
They also have a storefront, and I don't know how they sent it in, but we talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they mentioned that one of their locations is a storefront.
Well, the application asks you to identify your industry. So if you got a storefront, hopefully you clicked retail.
Well, it's a music store. I guess you can consider
that's retail.
That's retail.
Okay. All right.
Sure.
Okay. All right. A question just came in from.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Janice.
I have a question.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Good morning, Daniel and Ruth. My name is Jamie. I'm a sole proprietor. And I submitted a question last night by email, but I'll go ahead and repeat it. You had said, Ruth, that you were primarily interested in March financials. And I remember when I sent an application, when I looked at the website, it said that they wanted quarterly, first quarter.
Yeah.
January through March. The question is, one of the main criteria is you have to have a reduction of loss more than 50%. And
right.
Because you're looking at March, my March financials, I worked until March 17th. So that was already 3/4 of the month.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant that my revenue would have probably been 3/4 of what it usually is. And it wasn't necessarily more than 50% of, let's say, February. And so my concern is that, am I not meeting that criteria because I didn't meet that threshold of 50% reduction, whereas after March 17th, I had zero income. So I had to shut down my business because it's not essential. Right. I've had zero income since. I was told by the reviewer that I had to reapply in April if I didn't qualify, which I didn't know that there was a recurring process of applying each month. Just I didn't qualify, which I didn't know that I wasn't qualified because I'm completely out of work since March 17th.
Yeah. Let me walk through the math a little bit. So first of all, in retrospect, as we've been through this first batch of applications, we wish we had asked only for the March financial statements, because if you submit January, February, and March in one lump P&L, you're not going to show that much. We would have to take that and average that out and over the 3 months and calculate what your average would have been for March, and that would count against you in your situation because most of your loss was in March. So if you do your P&Ls from March 1 to March 31st, it's going to show a greater loss, if that makes sense from the math point of view, because we're comparing that to your historical 2 years average top line revenue monthly number. So we want to throw out January and February and really just look at March if we can. We are having lots of companies who are not qualified. They might have, say, for all of 19 and 18, their average monthly revenue was $10,000. And then for the month of March, even though it was in some cases it was really the last 2 weeks in March or the last 3 weeks in March, their loss on average without any other adjustments, just straight out, was $7,000. That 30% is a big hit, but it doesn't meet the 50% requirement of revenue loss that is part of this part of that is a requirement of this program.
So that goes back to my question, Ruth, because if you're only looking at March,
Yeah.
and I stopped work in the third week of March, that
Right.
meant that usually my revenue is already 3/4 of the way
Yeah.
through that month of March, so it wouldn't necessarily show that my revenue was reduced more than 50%. Now, in the month of April, I've had zero income, so
Right.
I wasn't aware that you were only reviewing March, where I went through all the trouble of applying, seeing
Yeah.
that I may not be eligible, and now I have to reapply in April, which from here on out, I have zero income. So I'm not sure how that helps me or where I have to wait for another application to come through.
Well, we're getting this out fast, and certainly in retrospect, we probably should have, we could have done some tweaks. But the bill only allows us to look at historical losses, right? We have to abide by the law that was passed. So we can't look at future losses. We can only look at historical losses.
That's right.
We are telling people to go ahead and reapply, like once they get their April numbers in a few days here. And what I don't have a good answer for is, do you have to completely do a whole new application, or can we just amend a current application that may have been denied because you haven't hit the 50%, but once we get April numbers in, you might actually hit that 50% and then fall into the approval bucket. So, believe me, that's been discussed over the weekend.
Yeah,
It was discussed yesterday, today. We are sorting that through.
Yeah.
And we do have a volume issue too. We have we've got about 5,500 applications right now. So we have a volume issue that we're trying to deal with particulars and details and personalizations of each application in an enormous volume capacity. But we hear you, and we're trying to solve for that now.
And just to quickly add to that, so each application is within a folder. So which means that, as Ruth said, we may not necessarily ask for the historical financials anymore. We will just look for the monthly now going forward. However, let me also answer Marilyn's question around application for April. Now, we have not announced that yet.
Correct.
And we have not announced that people cannot reapply or apply for April. As Ruth just said, the legislation itself stipulated that we look at, again, a significant drop in revenues, and again, it's not future losses, right? So therefore, March was the only month we could look at, and even till today, March is what the reviewers are looking at. And then when if there's, if that changes, we will make sure everybody's aware that we will tell everyone to apply that have not applied yet, or those who have applied to send us their financials for April when that happened. But Ruth, just to be clear, I haven't heard that we've made the announcement that we can apply for April.
No, we have to figure out how we're going to deal with that.
Exactly.
And I know sometimes Daniel and I aren't able to give really good answers. I can just tell you that we're working really hard, and we're trying to solve as we go, like everybody else. We're trying to cope and solve and adjust and adapt as we go. So the April issue is one that's has been being addressed over the last few days, and I'm sure we'll have some sort of solution coming out soon for that. We did get a question, another very common question in the chat about, if I made a mistake in my initial application, how can I correct it?
Yes.
I would say it depends on the mistake. If you forgot to attach one of your key financial documents, the reviewer will contact you. You can submit it to our, we have an email address on this website. You can submit it to this email address if you like. Like if you are really clear that you forgot to submit a particular year of tax returns, go ahead and submit it. We do have the ability to file documents we receive in this email to your loan application file, so that by the time someone like me gets to it, it's a complete file, which makes it faster for me to get through. If I come across your file and I'm missing a year of financial statements, which I have done, then I put you in my follow-up bucket. I email you and I ask you for the missing documentation. So if you can send it ahead of time, it makes it faster. It makes us faster in our reviews. If you've made a mistake on something like, for example, we are asking information like, how do you intend to spend the money? And let's say you're going to spend all of it on payroll, and then you realize, oh, maybe I should have done half payroll and half other expenses, and you want to correct that. That is not necessary. That information is for informational purposes only. It helps inform us and give us a picture about our business community and what people need, but that has no bearing on whether you're approved or not, or how much you're approved for. So don't worry about that correction.
All right. Thank you for that, Ruth.
Sure.
All right, let's go. Is there any other question? Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, my name is Yvonne and I have two questions. First of all, thank you so much for doing this. This is of great help. My first question relates to applying in April. I understand that everything is still kind of like change and figure it out what we are going to do. But I want to know if there is going to be an April application, if I can go ahead and apply on May 1st. I have the same issue as the person that asked a question a couple of minutes ago. March, not too bad, is definitely no less than 50%, but April is a disaster. So yeah. I would like to know if my May 1st, boom, I can put my April application. And if so, do I need to show 4 months or do I need to show 3 months? And my second, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish your question. I'm sorry.
That's question one. And then my second question is this going to be like the famous PPP 7A protection plan grant or loan that is first come, first serve, everything is finished, goodbye? Or how is it going to, the distribution of the grant, how is it going to happen? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to take those, Daniel? Do you want me to take it?
No, that's fine. I'll take them.
Okay, go ahead.
So in terms of, again, once the determination is made that we are opening up or we're extending the grant to look at losses in April.
Well, we've not closed the program. The program, no, that's right. It's open. The application's open.
It's open, but in terms of folks who are applying for April, we would let like our business resource partners know, our chamber partners. We'll probably send an email or a press release will come out around, we're considering losses in April as opposed to March right now, right? Because April is still, we talk about future losses right now when we talk about April. So I would say don't apply May 1st just because, the deadline is, there's no deadline for the application. So which means that you can always submit an application. Now, Ruth, do you think folks could just apply May 1st for April? What do you think?
Well, see, I think you could. And I'm sorry, folks, we're not super clear on this because I don't think the bill says the month of March.
No, that's correct.
So I think May 1st, if you have losses in April and clearly you meet the 50% loss calculation, I would submit an application May 1st.
Okay. Well, I would defer to you because
I'm kind of winging it here.
No, the things, as you say, that's one of the things we're discussing right now.
Yeah.
And as it stands right now, right, April is not considered as historic loss, is considered because we're still in April.
We're still in April,
right? So but come May 1st, and that's the point that I think I will yield to you, Ruth, which will be April then will become, historic loss, which means that, yes, you can apply. So yes. I'll refer to you, but again, what will happen is that, again, there's no deadline, so which is definitely something that, we're making sure we emphasize that there's no deadline to the application. So please make sure, as I say, I'll defer to Ruth when May 1st comes. If you haven't applied, please go ahead and apply. Now, the only thing I'm thinking of is those who have already applied. We already have the historic financial documents, right?
Yeah.
So for April, I mean, how are they going to get their April financial stores? That we haven't
We haven't solved that.
That's
We
correct.
haven't solved that yet.
That's correct.
I'm not sure, but what I would do is I would prepare all of your 2020 financials month by month by month. Don't lump them together.
That's right. All right,
I think that will come in handy as we roll along here.
Absolutely. So to the second question, around if this is a first come first serve, the answer is no. It's not first come first serve. In fact, the council and the county executive, emphasize that it's based on eligibility. So, and we've actually got some questions around that as well, where some folks will say my application number is 7,000. Right, or it's in the 7,000s. Does that mean that's my line? That's my place in line, or does that mean that's how long it would take for them to review my application? The answer is no. What happens is that once you're eligible, and then because of the provisions that are in the legislation for restaurant and retail storefront, then basically you go forward when it comes to the processing. Now, if, as Ruth indicated, if you're not eligible in the month of March, in terms of you haven't seen a significant, loss in revenues, which is 50% or greater, then obviously it goes into that other bucket of, you haven't met the criteria.
All right, and I'll remind folks that we said from the beginning, and we're here now. I think that we were going to look at the first 1,000 applications and then kind of take a pause and see what adjustments we might need to make. And I think we're pretty close to that 1,000 mark now. Well, maybe not. I'm sorry. Let me backtrack that as I'm looking over this. But we are working to get there, and we'll take a pause, and we might need to make some adjustments there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Let me see. I don't see any other question in the chat box. Anyone else with question? Can you unmute yourself real quick?
Yes. My name is Cordell, and I want to know if when I submitted my 1040, I noticed that it wasn't signed because I was in a hurry. My tax preparer had just sent it to me online, and I printed it out, and I submitted it without signing it. Is that going to work against me?
Well, did your tax preparer file it electronically for you?
Yes.
Okay, so on the tax return, the preparer has to include their PIN number that they've submitted electronically, and that's an acceptable signature.
PIN number?
The tax preparer has a PIN number, yes. If they've put it on there and they've filed it electronically, that is the same, that is, in our view, that's the same thing as a signature. So don't worry if you haven't signed it. Your tax preparer.
But if the PIN number is not there, because I just asked her to kindly send it to me, and I needed to sign two of the documents and return to her. But because I needed to file on time, I just went ahead and filed before I discovered that I had to sign the document. I just signed the document and sent to her to be able to file electronically.
Okay. I think probably what will happen is when have you filed the application yet?
With
us?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I think what will happen is a reviewer will look for that and get back to you if there's something missing like that. We're not putting you in the denial bucket if your tax returns aren't signed. We're not taking that hard line of approach. We will get back to you and ask for the signature page, or ask that you sign it. Just sign it true and correct, and then put a date on it. That's okay too. We'll work with you to clear that up.
If you.
Okay.
Daniel, Ruth, I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
This is regarding April. So now if we're not eligible in March and we reapply in April, as a sole proprietor, One of my concerns is that it's very difficult for you to look at my historical income, because if you're looking at April, where I have no income, therefore I have no expenses because my business is shut down. Question one is, how does that look on my P&L for April, where I have zero income, but I also have barely any expenses because my business is shut down? And how does that look in terms of submitting those financials for April? My second question is,
Can we stop? Can we stop right there?
Let's take that one first.
Yeah, let's take that one by itself. So,
Okay.
so this is Jamie, right?
Yes.
Okay, Jamie. So I'm assuming that you have also sent us 2 years of tax returns, right?
Yeah, 18 and 19.
Okay, so we're going to look at your 18 and 19, and we're going to take your top line revenue, and we're going to calculate a monthly average from those 2 years.
Okay, great.
And that's what we're going to use as a base to compare your loss to. So if you have a loss in April, and say you have zero income in April, but your typical monthly income is $5,000, you will be eligible for a grant of $5,000 unless there's any other, weird adjustments in there.
Right. And I'm sorry, and my second question was, could this be a situation just like the SBA grants and loans, where once you dole out the 20 million, depending on how many applicants that you have, that the money's going to be gone, and where everybody's trying to scramble to reapply in April and future,
Yeah.
will that possibility?
Well, that's
possible.
a question. It's a possibility.
Yes.
Only county council has the authority
That's
to
correct.
appropriate funding.
And
So
based on the 5,500 applicants that you have, could it be possible that the applications that you have now could exhaust or almost exhaust what you have currently, and then people reapplying in April, there may not be any money left or hardly any money left at that point?
It could be, but we're also struggling with a lot of companies that aren't eligible. So I don't think we can give you a really pat answer to that right now.
It's a big unknown. Yeah.
That's correct.
It's a big unknown. I'm sorry to be so ambiguous. It's just unknown as we sit here today.
Thank you very much.
Sure. I'm sorry. We can't be more definitive today.
A question just came into the chat. My P&L for March shows income from photo assignments done in January and February, which is 72%, and some income from March assignment, which is 28%. I had $6,600 worth of assignments pending that got canceled due to the pandemic. How do I explain or reconcile this on the application, which I've already submitted? Also, how do we send in a new P&L for March only? Thanks for your help. So, Max, the legislation does not allow us to look at future losses. So therefore, that's why the month we're looking at right now is the month of March. However, we don't have a deadline to the application. So which means when we get to May, the application, if it's still open, then obviously folks can then apply for March. Now, as I say, we're working out the details around those who've already applied. How would they be able to resubmit just the April financials that will be needed? So more will come in terms of, we'll provide more information as we go along with that. But for now, we're only looking at March. The legislation allows us to only look at the decline in revenues as a result of COVID-19. And then also, how to explain, well, I mean, the financials will really explain in terms of the significant loss in revenues. So we do understand that there are businesses who are seasonal businesses. We've had questions about this in the past. There are some businesses who are on, net 30, net 60, who still, in the month of March saw revenues coming in. And so because of that, they couldn't show a loss in the month of March. So just to give you an idea, in terms of how do you send in a new P&L in March or for March only, you should have submitted just a P&L in March, because remember, that's what we're looking at. If you mean P&L in April, that we have not, we don't have an answer for that yet. Ruth, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you answered that very well.
Okay. All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
But these are March losses. Yeah, Matt, we've gone through this like since we started in terms of we know that these are March losses, but they're not showing in, you know, it's not showing in your P&L or your bank statement for those who are sending on bank statement. And because of, I think we just had a question before yours from Jamie, which is the same situation. Like, it's not showing much loss in March. However, he has 0 revenues in April. So we know that there are many folks who are in this category. We realize that, and hopefully let's see what happens. As I say, the only thing I can say is that the application doesn't have a deadline. So as soon as we get into May, then April becomes, again, a loss as a result of COVID. And as I say, we will, folks who have not applied can apply immediately, and folks who have applied, we don't know how, I mean, we'll get back to you in terms of how you can send us, you know, financials for the month of April.
For April, yeah.
All right. If you haven't asked a question, we have about 10 more minutes left. Please unmute yourself and go ahead and ask a question. If not, you can type your question into the chat box. Any other questions?
Okay, guys, I'm going to ask another question.
Go right ahead.
Now, when I know you're still considering this, but I've already had email conversations with my reviewer.
Good.
Would it be safe to say that you would have the same reviewer? And if so, that would be easier for me, because I could just put together my P&L for the month of April and just send it in that same thread to the reviewer to add it to my application. Would that be something that would be you know, easy to do, and that would be easier for you guys, let's say?
Definitely, I would agree with you. If they ask me how we should do it, that would be my response.
So let me just say that because of capacity, like we're bringing more folks in the back end to really help with the volume. So I mean, Ruth is always right. So I usually
I wouldn't say that. Ruth. Don't say that.
However, I can say that again, because of the volume, and especially the folks who are bringing in to help us with the volume, it's not guaranteed that, you know, everyone will maintain, or everyone will maintain their reviews. I just want to make sure that you know, as I say, we need to get, the county executive wants us to get the applications like reviewed as fast as possible and get answers to you as soon as possible.
Sure, I understand. And my follow-up to that is, I did ask this question to my reviewer, and this was something that was puzzling to me, and maybe you can answer that, because my reviewer had suggested if I reapply in April, that I should not include any payroll expenses, because there would be a decrease in area. So what would that look like if I didn't have any income, but I also didn't have many expenses? How should I submit my P&L for April? I mean, do I still include the minimal amount of expenses I have for my business, even though it's shut down?
Yes. Yes, you need to do a P&L. Just do a regular P&L. Here's your income, here's your expenses. What we're looking for are businesses who have laid off employees. Like if you went from 25 employees to none, that we're asking you, what is that drop in payroll expense? What is that number of the drop in the payroll expense?
Right. For me, it's just me. I'm a sole proprietor, so.
All right.
0 for payroll, and then minimal for expenses, because I'm a home-based business anyway. So if my business is running, I don't have the normal expenses, so there wouldn't be much data on that P&L, just showing that.
That's okay. You can even do a bank statement if that's easier for you. But I frankly, personally, from what I've reviewed, I think a P&L is better.
I agree.
Even if it has 0 income and, you know, $1,000 or $500 worth of expenses, a P&L is better. Because when you know, bank statements are very helpful, but they can be a little tricky too, and sometimes require some adjustments. I'll give you an example. We're looking at bank statements, and we say, okay, for the month of March, your bank statement had $5,000 of money coming into the account. However, if you look through the bank statement and you see that half of that is a transfer from somebody's line of credit into the bank account, that's not revenue.
That's
so
correct.
we're taking that out. We don't want that to count against you.
Right.
So we're making those adjustments. But a P&L doesn't usually require so much time or adjustments to review. So P&Ls are quicker.
Right. And for some sole proprietors like myself, we use our personal checking account.
Personal bank account.
Yes.
That's right.
I have a account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
And
wanna
that's
give you my
okay.
personal account information. bank
Yeah, that's
statement.
exactly. So a P&L would be much better.
Great. Okay.
This is not
Yes,
easy.
I agree with you, because for me, sometimes when you do business, the checks come like 1 month or 6 weeks after. So
Right.
if you see a check in March, it could be misleading that
That's right.
you made some money, but actually it is check paid after 2 months.
Right.
of
This is
job
the
that you
difference
did.
This is the difference between cash accounting, like a restaurant that collects cash on the spot, right?
Yes.
Versus accrual. You get paid after you do your service, sometimes 30 days, sometimes longer. You know,
Yes.
a lot of doctors' practices, they don't get paid for 90 days from the insurance
Yes.
companies. Right?
Yes.
So yes,
Yes.
this is why we're having this collective community conversation about future losses. April, May, June, however long this lasts. This is why we're having this conversation about future losses.
I have a question. This is Marilyn. Hi, you guys.
Hi, Marilyn.
Marilyn.
How are you factoring in reserves?
We're not.
Okay.
This is one of those questions we're trying to collect some information so we have it helps tell the story and informs us, but it is not calculated into whether you are eligible or not, or the amount of the grant.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Marilyn. All right, let's go ahead and take one more. Please unmute yourself and ask a question if you have a question. All right, anyone else?
Okay.
All right, Ruth, any last words for folks?
No, I thank you all for participating and good questions, and thank you for your persistence and patience, and I hope everybody's hanging in there and staying safe. Thank you very much. I'm going to go do a few more reviews. See ya.
And again, I want to echo that. Thank you so much for being patient with us as well. We know that there are many things we're discussing in the back, and we're being very transparent with you to ensure that you know exactly where we stand on this. And as soon as we get those updates, we will be here again tomorrow. Talking about be here, we have webinars that are ongoing. So these are the ones that are coming up. You can sign up for any of these webinars. And also, just one more thing, if you have any questions, please send us an email right here. These info COVID-19 at montgomerycountymd.gov. There are a bunch of us. In fact, yesterday we just brought in some more capacity to help us manage that inbox, because we're getting a lot of emails. So please don't hesitate. If you have a question, send us an email. We will get to you as soon as possible. Thank you again for your patience. And
we just got a question. Somebody wanted to know if we were updating the FAQs. The answer is yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, all the time.
We're making sure as soon as we get questions from you and others, we are actually updating the FAQs as well. And that's why every day that we start, we will give you some updates as well.
Thank goodness we thought about that one from the outset.
That is correct. That's correct. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And with that being
Thank
said,
you.
we'll go ahead and end this session. Let me give a quick shout out to Buzz 365 Media. They've been amazing in hosting us and really creating this platform for us to reach out to you.
Yes, we could not do this without them, folks. They've been
And they're
a
local
tremendous.
Montgomery County business. So thank you,
Yes,
small business.
yeah.
So thank you so much to
Yes, they're heroes.
yeah. All right. So
Thank you
good
both.
to see all of you and see you tomorrow. We'll
Okay.
end the session now.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.